my friends. Thank you so much to those who are listening and commenting. I'm trying to make sure that I reply to every comment on YouTube. Trying. TikTok gets a little bit away from me. I try not to spend as much time in the app. And I know that this stuff is a drag, but I think I'm liking this method of kind of laying it out in order, going through my journals, my gratitude journal and my 5-year journal I've been looking at. So I wrote again some stuff, so you'll see me looking to the side. September 15th of 2023, in my 5-year journal, I wrote that my parents flew to Florida to see us, and it was my first time seeing them in over a year, almost a year and a half. First time seeing them since May of 2022. I had gone low contact with them in July of 2022 after I just couldn't get over a conversation. It was mostly my dad really furious at me. That had occurred in April of 2022. And he was mad at me in April 2022 over a TikTok post that I had done. Purple stocking hat, grocery store parking lot. And the conversation with my dad in April 2022, I wouldn't even call it an argument, or it was layered with threats, manipulation, and legacy-based control. Stop talking on TikTok or I'll take you out of the will. He said, quote, "I'll hold a lighter to the will. Let it go, move on. You're not a perfect parent either." And there's something so soul disorienting, I wrote, about being told to forgive and forget by the person, one of the people who caused the wound, especially when the forgetting is for their comfort, not your healing. It wasn't about me staying angry. It was about me no longer gaslighting myself into pretending that it didn't hurt. So I had stepped back in July of 2022, didn't speak to them for the rest of the year. I did send one short message during Hurricane Ian, letting them know we were okay since the eye had passed over our home, our area. But otherwise I remained at a distance. They still spoke to my daughters through Messenger Kid and video calls. I allowed that, I facilitated it, but I did not re-enter contact with my dad. And then came September 2023, they flew in. I remember being incredibly nervous, like stomach hollow nervous. I spent therapy sessions preparing my heart and mind for it. And when they arrived, I stayed with the help of my therapist. We had decided that the best thing for me was to stay on the periphery. I did, when they were outside at this table that I'm sitting at, it just used to be over there. When they were out here, I was pulling weeds, just doing yard chores. When they were inside, I was just staying busy with house chores. It was a kind of a quiet avoidance that allowed me to witness the visit, but sometimes proximity, at least in that case, was all I could manage. Survival through observation, not necessarily wanting to be disconnected, but observing. I wrote a way to stay near the thing that hurts without reopening the wound. But I also remember hearing my daughters laugh with them a lot, lots of laughter, lots of telestrations and other fun games they played. They spent some time in the pool. I'm pretty sure I even got in with them. Lots of moments of joy. And in a strange way, that part is very healing, allowing myself to experience at a safe distance. And then on the day they left, something happened. In my gratitude journal for September 17th, I wrote, "Getting what sounded like a heartfelt apology from my dad as he hugged me goodbye." I remember that moment, and he had hugged me so tightly, so tightly. And he said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so, so sorry." With such a fervent sincerity that I wasn't expecting. It's strange how I actually hadn't thought about that much until reading it in my gratitude journal. I almost felt guilty that I hadn't remembered it. But maybe that's what happens when your body stores caution alongside hope, when even good things have to pass through layers of defense. And I don't know and didn't know what it meant at that time, beyond just feeling good that he could say something, but it certainly meant something. About a month later, October 18th, 2023, my 5-year journal has a short entry. It said, "Had to level set with Matt again. He's a good roommate, a good dad, but still has no idea how to emotionally support me." That's it. But that sentence holds so much weight. It's one of those quiet truths that echoes louder than yelling ever could. He does the dishes, helps with the girls, helps me with house projects. He's responsible mostly. And from the outside, he checks all the boxes. But emotional presence, validation, partnership, that was never there. And the worst part is obviously that's not the first time I wrote something like that. There's so much in my journal that is nearly identical. And it's, just so much of it is just a cycle that, how do you know it's not? How do you not see it? How is it just not so clear? And my 5-year journal wasn't actually meant for relationship therapy logging. It was supposed to be just light day-to-day stuff. Things the girls said that made me laugh. Events maybe that we went to, or different things going on. So when Matt shows up in it, I know it must have meant a lot that day. It must have sat heavy on my chest enough to make it into my life's highlight reel, if you will. And around this time, I remember agonizing, just absolutely agonizing over what to do about the relationship, feeling trapped, torn, grieving something that had not ended yet, but already felt so over. I hadn't written down yet that I had done EMDR yet. I knew it was soon, and actually eventually when looking farther through my journals, I did find January is when I did my first EMDR. But I remember something my therapist Tamara had said about that time in October. I have a feeling if you finally agree to do EMDR, that the decision won't even feel like, oops. So my therapist said, I have a feeling if you finally agree to do EMDR, the decision won't even feel like a decision anymore. It'll be clear the path that you need to take. And I couldn't even fathom that at the time. It seemed like too easy, like the idea that this massive, paralyzing, life-altering choice could somehow become clear. That something like EMDR could lift the fog or let me know what the path was to take. It felt impossible. And part of me hoped that she was right, but a bigger part of me was just like, no, it's not. November 7th, 2023, I wrote in my 5-year journal, slept terrible overnight, feel so unheard by Matt regarding a few things I was asking for help with. When I try to explain how it feels to be unheard, he just brushes it off as no one's perfect and that I expect too much. And it's hard to explain the type of unheard I meant. I'm sure So many of you who resonate and share your own stories similar to this know what I mean by that. But I more mean to explain to him. It's not just about him missing my words. It's about missing the meaning, feeling the connection of someone who actually hears and cares. When you speak, but the other person responds with defensiveness and dismissal. Anyway, the next day, November 8th, I wrote, "Things are shattered with Matt. Officially," I wrote in all caps. "Unsure if we separate right now or just continue to cohabitate as co-parents." And like I mentioned a little bit ago, the thing about being in a cycle is that you can't, I sure couldn't see it while I was in it. So much trying to convince yourself that things will be different or that they are different, even when you can see in your own writings that it's repeating itself. December 1st, I wrote, "Matt accidentally mentioned that the teacher Christmas party tomorrow night is a 1+. I remember being like, "Wait, it's a 1+? You didn't tell me that." He backpedaled, saying I just assumed you wouldn't want to go in the first place. And I said, "Well, you're right, but you could have asked." I probably would have gone. The venue where it was going to be was a really cool place. He had raved about the catering the previous year. It's like, I probably would have, but you just didn't even ask. And what I didn't say was it would just be nice to be seen, heard, cared about enough to ask, to feel more like I'm a babysitter for you, more than just someone in the background, just a means to an end for you. December 8th, I wrote, "Hit a brick wall with therapy. Don't want to be in it anymore. I'm fatigued. So different from when I felt like I couldn't survive a week without it." And my therapist had gently offered a theory when I told her that. "Maybe it's because you're standing at the brink of a major decision and you know it and you're avoiding it. Maybe it's time to try EMDR." I didn't yet. Not for another month. December 12th, I wrote, this was in my gratitude journal because I write what I'm thankful for. Some water just came up. "Thankful I survived a rough week of tension between Matt and I. I want a divorce. He wants to continue head in the sand denial." Even then I knew that it was over, but I also didn't think that I would have the strength to go through with it, because a divorce wasn't just a decision. It was, according to my upbringing, a moral failure, a deep eternal stain, something only other people did, not us. I was someone who was raised to believe it was absolutely never an option, no matter what. In fact, I remember dating someone briefly in college just before I met Matt, whose parents were divorced. And my mom had openly, to me, expressed concern about that. Some of her exact words were, "So he knows it's an option." Like that was a bad thing. As if just knowing you could leave a harmful marriage meant you were somehow predisposed to sin or weakness. As if staying, no matter the cost, was the only righteous path. At the time, I didn't fully grasp how deeply her words had planted themselves in me. But now I understand. And those words have come to me several times in the last couple years, and just seeing them so differently now. Because when you grow up believing that leaving isn't an option, you don't develop the tools to recognize that staying is slowly destroying you. It didn't matter that I was exhausted, that I was lonely, that I was crying in therapy, crying in the closet I slept in. All I could hear was that inherited generational voice. Don't leave, don't fail, don't become the one they talk about. And that's what made it so hard. I still felt like I couldn't choose myself, even though my body and my soul knew what I needed to do. I had no aunts or uncles to model divorce. It didn't run in my family, if you will. I had no one to ask. No stories about how hard it was, but how necessary. I only know of one relative who got a divorce in, I believe it was, I certainly didn't hear details because we, sweep a lot of things under the rug in the church I grew up in. I believe it was an abusive situation. And she was the one ostracized for ending the marriage, for deciding to leave. Pushed out of the church for leaving her husband. And that was the template that I had. So even when my body knew, my journal knew, my therapist knew, there was still this rooted voice in my head saying, you're not allowed to leave. You can't break that sacred vow. The shame was heavier than the hurt. And in between all of that, in the 5-year journal, were the girls. As I flipped through it and read through, I noticed how often I write about how good it feels to take care of them in small, soft ways. I love doing their hair before school. I love painting, touching up their nails, helping them with their earrings, laying out theme day outfits around special days or special holidays or special events at school. I love driving them to school. I didn't grow up with that. I didn't have that. There was no nail painting allowed in the religion that I grew up in. My parents didn't have the money or the means available to do the, silly theme outfits. My parents were farmers, and I don't know. I'm not trying not to pass judgment or blame that I wasn't driven to school. My rural bus route was long and not good memories at all, scary memories. I'm just so thankful I can do it differently. It's very healing to my inner child. And maybe in seeing all of that, how thankful I am for it. Feels like this is one of the ways in which you can break a generational cycle, not by being perfect, but just by being present in the small ways. Christmas Day, 2023, I wrote, lovely, wonderful day. This is all I wrote that day. Lovely, wonderful day with the 2 humans I love most. I kind of feel mean that I wrote that, because Matt was there that day too. But holy guacamole, the fact that I didn't include him in that sentence tells me a whole lot. My final entry of 2023, trying to rise above and not live my life incredibly depressed to be with someone who constantly hurts me so deeply and just doesn't seem to care. Wow. It's like I knew again, but just couldn't. And soon after, I would take a step that would change everything. I did find it. I was gonna ask my therapist if I couldn't find it, because I couldn't remember the first day I did EMDR, but I did find a mention of it in my journals. January 16th, my first EMDR session changed everything. But that is a story for the next post. I need to go mow the lawn, even though there's a heat advisory. Thank you for listening.